One thing follows the other. The Church knows that she is joined in many ways to the baptized, who are honored by the name of Christians, but who do not, however, profess the Catholic faith in its entirety. It means the heretics. And have not preserved unity or communion under the successor of Peter. That means the schismatics. So let's translate this and read again. The Church knows she is joined in many ways to the heretics and schismatics. I would have liked the Council to explain to me in what way the Church is joined to heretics and schismatics when the Church says they are outside the Church. The Church dogmatically defines that they are outside the Church. How can she be joined to them? This is, to go back to the theological censures, this is not heresy, it is close to heresy. These Christians are indeed in some real way joined to us in the Holy Spirit. That is heresy and blasphemy. For by his gifts and graces, his sanctifying power is also active in them. Interesting. And he has strengthened some of them even to the shedding of their blood. This is direct heresy against the Council of Florence. Then Schönmetzer 1351, Pope Eugene IV, who said, even if they shed their blood for Christ, they cannot be saved. Again, I repeat, objectively. But the Council pronounces objectively, of course, because the Council, just like the whole Catholic Church, the Council cannot judge the dead. The Council cannot judge the internal intentions. The Council cannot judge souls. The Council can only, like the Church can, only judge objective ways of being saved. So the Council here speaks objectively, by nature, objectively. These Christians are indeed in some real way joined to us in the Holy Spirit, for by his gifts and graces his sanctifying power is also active in them, and he has strengthened some of them even to the shedding of their blood. This is the exact contrary of what the Council of Florence says. Therefore, the Council right here is in heresy. Now, how about all the poor Japanese who have never had a Catholic missionary until the year 1500 something? I don't know. Leave me alone. Give me a break. I don't know. The Church doesn't know. We don't know. God doesn't tell us everything. God doesn't tell you what I say in confession. Thank God. God doesn't tell us everything. I don't know what happened to the poor Japanese until the first Catholic missionary showed up and baptized the first Japs. I don't know. And I don't even try to find out. I have other problems. People are so hung up about the Buddhist monks in Bhutan and the Japanese until 1500 that they forget to save their own soul. Number 16. Finally, those who have not yet received the gospel are related to the people of God in various ways. The Church, that means. Those who have not yet received the gospel. It would have been nice if they had added potentially. They might convert and then they are in the Church. So potentially they are related to the Church. Potentially they are in the Church. Actually they are not. There is first that people to which the covenants and promises were made and from which Christ was born according to the flesh. In view of the divine choice, they are people of most dear for the sake of the fathers, for the gifts of God, and without repentance. The Jews, of course. Now, are the Jews related to the Catholic Church? I'm talking about the Jewish faith. I'm not talking about the individual Jew. Is the Jewish faith, whatever they call it, the Mosaic faith, all the different, the Hasidim and whatever, are they related to the Church? No, they're not. St. Paul says quite clearly, the Jews rejecting Christ do not even see the truth of the Old Testament but through a veil or a curtain. Do the Jews pray to the same God we do? No. Is the God of the Old Testament the same God of the New Testament? Yes. But as they do not accept the God of the New Testament, they also reject the one of the Old Testament because they are identical. You see? Those people who contradict me on this point, I've got them in a beautiful trap. Either you say the Jews do not pray to the same God, or the God of the Old Testament is not the same as the New Testament. I'll leave the choice with you. St. Paul is very clear on that. The Jews have rejected God when they crucified Christ. All Jews? No, the Jews. Not the individual. I don't know about the individual. But the plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator, in the first place amongst whom are the Muslims. They profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us they adore one merciful God. No, they don't. Here I've had heated discussions with people who do not understand the distinction of objective and subjective. The Muslims reject the New Testament in the sense the Catholic Church uses it. The Muslims pray against us to one merciful God. Each Muslim? No, the Muslim. The Council says, Musulmani nobiscum adorant unum Deum misericordiosum. And I've heard it say, one of the arguments that they use is, okay, that means are the Muslims who go to hell? I didn't say that. I don't know. That means the Muslims do not believe they are praying to the same God. That's not what I said, not what the Council said. The Council said they do pray to one merciful God together with us. If the Council had wanted to stay with outside heresy and within the faith, the Council would have had to say the Muslims pray to one merciful God. They do. Allah is a merciful God in the Quran, and He's one God in the Quran. But it's not our God. St. Paul said the gods of the pagans are demons. St. Paul said that. He spoke about the pagan religions at the time of Christ, but then again, the moment Muslims were not baptized anymore, they went back to paganism, and that is even worse, much worse, because it's apostasy. The Muslims are apostates. They reject the entire faith. The first Muslims were. Now the Muslims are neither apostates, nor heretics, nor schismatics. They're just pagans. Period. They cannot pray to one merciful God together with us. They pray to one merciful God, and they pray a lot more to one merciful God than the Christians do. They follow a lot more the funny precepts of the Quran, written in the name of one merciful God, than the Christians follow the New Testament. They are much more of an example in their religion than most Christians are in the true religion. But they do not pray together with us. It is absurd to claim that people who uphold the Quran are praying together with us to a merciful God. Objectively, they do not. The poor little Arab out there in the desert doesn't know what he's doing, maybe, and God one day might, I don't believe it for a minute, but might say, okay, you tried your best. I don't believe it for a minute. But subjectively, he might pray together with me. Subjectively. He might think that he does so. He might do so, subjectively. Objectively, definitely not. Objectively, he follows a book that says the very idea of the Trinity is excremental. I'm quoting the Quran, pardon me. They follow a book that in Surah 47 says, kill the infidels, that means us. Objectively, they do not pray together with us, but against us. They pray for the perish of our faith. They pray for the destruction of the Catholic faith. They pray for the destruction of the Catholic Church. They pray for the conversion of the Catholics to Islam. To call this, to say that they pray together with us, is therefore close to heresy in denying at least the importance of the dogma on the Trinity and Incarnation, which the Muslims reject, and on the Mother of God, which the Muslims revere, but not as Mother of God, but as a holy woman. And it is definitely, by saying all these things, blasphemous. It insults God, it's offensive to pious ears. In number 18, the Council says, the holders of office who are invested with a sacred power are in fact dedicated to promoting the interests of their brethren. No, sir, they are not. I am not empowered And the purpose of my being a priest is not to promote the interests of you. I am here to promote your faith and the interests of God. I'm here to promote your following the 10 Commandments, which is, at least as the 6th commandment is concerned, not your interest, really. Beg your pardon, but at least for most people, right? Starting with me. The 6th commandment is not my interest. My interest is to follow God and His orders, to say yes, sir, to God. I do not promote your interest, I promote your salvation, and therefore God's interest, because God wants everybody to be saved, but not without the individual's agreement. In number 22, no, it's not 22:2. In number 22, the council says, in it the bishops, in the church, in it the bishops, whilst loyally respecting the primacy and preeminence of their head, that's optimism, exercise their own proper authority for the good of their faithful, indeed even for the good of the whole church, the organic structure and harmony of which are strengthened by the continued influence of the Holy Spirit. The supreme authority over the whole church, which this college possesses, is exercised in a solemn way in an ecumenical council. The College of Bishops doesn't possess any supreme authority, only the Pope does. And then they say, you see, this is it's a devious way of thinking, talking, writing, and preaching. When the bishops, together with the Pope, decide on something, the supreme authority of the whole church is talking. Yes, because, why? The same council later on says it. Because of the authority given to the Pope. So the supreme authority in the church is not the College of Bishops, but the Pope. The same council says if the College of Bishops decides without the Pope or against the Pope, it's not valid. The decision is not valid. Therefore, why does the council say here the supreme authority over the whole church, which this college possesses? The College of Bishops does not possess any supreme authority. The Pope has it, and only because the Pope has it, the College of Bishops has it as long as they confirm what the Pope says and agree with what the Pope says, or have their pronouncements confirmed by the Pope. I'm turning pages here because most of it is such tiring blah blah. Although the bishops, taken individually, do not enjoy the privilege of infallibility, they do, however, proclaim infallibly the doctrine of Christ on the following conditions. Namely, when, even though dispersed throughout the world, but preserving for all that amongst themselves and with... Excuse me. Okay. Throughout the world, but preserving for all that amongst themselves and with Peter's successor, the bond of communion, in their authoritative teaching concerning matters of faith and morals, they are in agreement that a particular teaching is to be held definitively and absolutely. Again, the bishops don't possess anything. It says, only in agreement with Peter's successor. Why do they bother talk many lines and many pages about the privilege of infallibility given to the bishops? Why? And the very fact that in the same number 25, I didn't give the number, excuse me, in the same number 25, there is a very beautiful description of the papal infallibility. You see that the council bothers, even though it does not deny the papal infallibility, and even though it does not logically contradict what it says about the papal infallibility, bothers to tell you several times over that the bishops have the supreme power. Why? What for? What's the purpose? Why did they bother to do that? Well, again, the historical and papal interpretation of it is that most of the powers today are given away to the College of Bishops, the Bishops' Conferences, the Synod of Bishops, the Council of Bishops, to the point that in Redemptor Hominis, the first encyclical this Pope wrote, this Pope really defaces himself when he says that the unity of the Church is consistent in the Synod of Bishops, the Bishops' Conferences, the Episcopal Councils, the Parish Councils. So we have a Soviet Church. Soviet means council. All councils. all bureaucratic blah blah with majority vote. That is the unity of the Church? Well, according to Redemptor Hominis, it is. In Redemptor Hominis, the Pope does not mention the unity of faith, the unity of the liturgy, and the unity under Peter. No, he mentions the unity of the Church as something consistent in the episcopal conferences, the local conferences, the local synods, the parish councils, the episcopal councils, the priestly councils. That means we have a committee church. And now the Vatican is the central committee. This is the Soviet Union in the Church. And the purpose of the collegiality is, indeed, to weaken the power of the papacy. You will read about this in Father Paul Kramer's book. In this is an extensive number, 29, at the end of number 29, now the Council finally starts to make proposals. It will be possible in the future to restore the diaconate as a proper and permanent rank of the hierarchy. The Council of Trent did not want that. But it pertains to the competent local episcopal conferences, this is 22.2 again, of one kind or another, with the approval of the Supreme Pontiff to decide whether and where it is opportune that such deacons be appointed. Should the Roman Pontiff think fit, it will be possible to confer this diaconal order even upon married men, provided they be of more mature age, whatever that means. I've met imbeciles at the age of 80. Not imbeciles again, but always been imbeciles. And also on suitable young men, for whom, however, the law of celibacy must remain in force, at least that. This is the destruction of the diaconate, because the diaconate is a state of orders towards the priesthood. The Council of Trent explicitly said, we do not want you to give minor orders to people who do not strive for the priesthood. And that's very rightly so, because believe me, celibacy is not easy. You need the graces of the office, and the graces of the office come with the priesthood, not with some benedictions. They come with diaconate, but not as much as a priest gets them. Also, if somebody wants to live a celibate life, why wouldn't he want to become a priest anyway? Unless he becomes a brother in a monastery, which is entirely different, not to be compared to the diaconate. And again, the Council does not talk about the minor orders. Consequently, Paul VI attempted to abolish them. Attempted, I say, because he did not outlaw them. First. Second, his decisions is invalid anyway, because the subdiaconate at least goes back to the time of the apostles. Everything that has been said of the people of God is addressed equally to laity, religious, and clergy. Where's the hierarchy? I mean, I'm very glad if at the last judgment I'm judged exactly as you will be. I'd be glad about that, because I know it won't be that way. I'm a priest. I'm above all of you, so I will be judged first, and I will be judged a lot more harshly than you will. But make no mistake, hell is hell, wherever you end. The rest is blah, 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 blah. The Pilgrim Church, an entire chapter on the Pilgrim Church. I'm not going to bore you with it. Then finally, there's an appendix, chapter 8, on Our Lady. Many council fathers wanted the council to speak in a separate document on Our Lady. Cardinal Koenig of Vienna said, no, there's no need for it. And believe it or not, by the time the council was finished, I think some people would agree with me when they say, thank God the council at least didn't say much about Our Lady. Nothing good would have come out of it anyway. At the end of this document, which is ending my conference today, at the end of this document, there's an explanatory note. Announcement made by the Secretary General of the Council at the 123rd General Congregation, November 16, 1964. A query has been made as to what is the theological qualification. I explained. Remember when I talked about the positions of, the theological positions, when I said something is of divine faith, defined faith, close to the faith, sententia certa, reasonably sure, we're sure about it, or it's just probable. This is what's meant here, theological qualification. That means, is this council dogmatic or not? A query has been made as to what is the theological qualification to be attached to the teaching put forward in the scheme, the church on which a vote is to be taken. The Doctrinal Commission has replied to this query in appraising the modi, that means the different ways of, proposed to the third chapter of the schema, the church, that means Lumen Gentium. As is self-evident, the conciliar text is to be interpreted in accordance with the general rules which are known to all. That means face value. So please don't try to tell me that all this can really find a Catholic interpretation. On face value it doesn't, and that's good enough for me. On this occasion, the Doctrinal Commission referred to its declaration of March 6, 1964, which we reproduce here. I quote, "Taking into account conciliar practice and the pastoral purpose of this present council, the Sacred Synod defined as binding on the Church only those matters of faith and morals which it has expressly put forward as such. Whatever else it proposes as the teaching of supreme magisterium of the Church is to be acknowledged and accepted by each and every member of the faithful according to the mind of the Council, which is clear from the subject matter and its formulation, following the norms of theological interpretation." That means the Council is at most ordinary magisterium, not extraordinary magisterium. I read Pope Pius XII on ordinary magisterium to you, and I explained with this in context with what Pope Innocent III and many other popes and saints and doctors of the Church, I forgot to mention St. Robert Bellarmine, say. The Council does not have the authority of ordinary teaching because in parts of its documents it contradicts directly. You have seen a few of the heresies. The ones I'm going to talk about at the next session will even be worse. Because the Council contradicts ordinary and extraordinary magisterium in the past, the Council cannot claim the authority of ordinary magisterium. Archbishop Lefebvre asked Cardinal Pericle Felici, the Secretary of the Council, on the theological qualifications in addition to this declaration. And Cardinal Felici said, well, of course, as far as those things are concerned that the Council quoted from former councils anyway, they have to be upheld. Of course. But as far as the new things are concerned, they have to be taken with care. Now, taken with care means you look at how the Church interpreted things in the past and how the Church took position to documents in the past. In the old days, there was an index, a list of forbidden books. There was a proper congregation in the Roman Curia, congregation of the index, just on that topic. There were a few pious and learned priests who would read through endless boring and stupid books in order to find out if they're acceptable to a Catholic or not. Now, just to show you how the Church thought about that once upon a time, the wonderful novel by Alexandre Dumas, The Three Musketeers, was put on the index because Alexandre Dumas made fun of a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church. Cardinal Armand Jean Duplessis de Richelieu, Cardinal and Archbishop of Paris, Grand Admiral of the King, Louis XIII, was a criminal. He signed a contract with the Turks against the Catholic Empire of Austria. He was a criminal. He bribed he bribed princes and counts in Germany in order to become Protestants, therefore binding their local territory to the Protestant religion, and therefore destroy the power of Austria against France. Cardinal Richelieu was a politician of the worst kind. He was the Clinton of his age. And yet, because he was a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, the Church did not approve of a lay author making fun of him in a book. If you say that's exaggerated, I agree. I've read The Three Musketeers 4 times over. And I saw practically all the movies based on the book. And I loved the book. And Cardinal Richelieu was a criminal. But anyway, the church found it scandalous just because they made fun of the cardinal, of a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church. Now you can imagine how the Congregation of the Index treated a book that contained heresy. Back home, I have a very good translation of the Bible into German, written by Van Es, V-A-N-E-S-S. Van Es. The Van Es Bible is on the Index because it contains a few minor errors. It's been put on the Index, even though it's the Bible. It's been put on the Index because of a few minor errors. Take an educated guess what the Congregation of the Index would have done with this book. And this is why, and be very careful about the distinction I'm about to make, this is why I reject Vatican II. Non in omnibus, sed in toto. Non in omnibus, sed in toto. I reject Vatican II as a whole, not in each line. That would be heretical because occasionally Vatican II quotes the Council of Trent and Nicaea and whatever. They quote old councils, and as far as they do that, they proclaim the doctrine of the Church. But as far as the new things are concerned, as Cardinal Felici said, they have to be taken with care. Therefore, I solemnly reject this book. I reject Vatican II in its entirety, not in every single line. As such, I reject this book because it contains heresy, not because everything in it is heresy. The translation of the Bible made by Martin Luther is not entirely wrong, but it has always been rejected by the Church because of a few mistakes, deliberately or erroneously inserted. The Church rejects a book the moment the Church finds one single grave error in the book. If the Church has always done that, then I have to do so. I've just shown you a few errors. Let's just call them errors. Some people get upset when I pronounce the judgment on what is heresy, what is not heresy. I couldn't care less what they say, but anyway, at least some of the things in this council are erroneous. Therefore, I reject it. And you have to if you want to stay Catholics. Thank you. Minutes of questions and answers. Please ask important questions. And give me, wait, before I answer a question, I retain the right to reject a question without personal offense. Anybody is personally offended because I reject the question, he did not understand. We don't have enough time to answer all the questions. I will choose what question I consider important. Ask.
Is there any chance that the English translation is improperly translated from the Latin?
Thank you. Very good question. Excellent question. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you. This is the translation of the documents of Vatican II, translated by Austin Flannery, O.P. This is the best translation of Vatican II in any language. And to show you how devious some translators are, there is another translation. I forgot the author. The translator. There's another translation available in America. It's usually, in the old days it had a red cover, not the blue. And they translated that horrible heresy of Lumen Gentium 16, the Muslims together with us adore one God. In Latin it is Musulmani, nobiscum adorant unum Deum. Nobiscum means together with us. The other guy translated it along with us. That is a very devious mistake in translation. Because if you say the Muslims along with us pray to one merciful God, it's just about an acceptable statement. Just about. It's close to error. But together with us is an expression that has to be rejected. The Latin original says nobiscum. Nobiscum, look it up in your Latin dictionaries. Nobiscum is not along with us, it's with us, together with us. Nobiscum. And I have checked the most important statements in this book with the Latin original text, and I found this book to be an excellent translation. Next.
One of the traditional priests is saying the Mass spoke on the 23rd. Do you know if there's any violation there of quo primo?
No. I will talk about this in New Orleans. Next question.
Yeah, I'm a little confused in this because where is, if the Church is doing this, or the Vatican II has established this, where is, and you're educated, that sounds like to me, where are they going to go? Where are the people who don't agree with this? Where's the outlook for them? How are they going to, who's going to establish something?
A future pope will have to. I wish I had the answer for this, but...
what church are they going to go to then?
I wish I had the answer. I wish I had the answer.
We're in a state of,
It's the greatest confusion in church history. There have been confusions like this before, like when Pope Liberius sided with the Arianist heresy, and the only one to reject him, to reject his error, was Saint Athanasius. You can imagine how confused the people were. Or think of the situation of Pope Honorius siding with the monothelies, which is saying that Christ has only one will, not divine and human will. And remember the situation of John the 22nd, who said that the souls of the dead cannot face the beatific vision or cannot go to hell before the last judgment, which is definite heresy against the Fourth Council of Constantinople, and the Fourth Lateran Council, I'm sorry. And the John the 22nd took it back only on his deathbed. And then there was a time, remember, the 14th century, the end of the 14th century, we had 3 popes, and people didn't know who was the pope. That's why I repeatedly said, de internis ecclesia non judicat. The church doesn't judge internal intentions. If a human being makes a mistake because the conciliar church confused him, he will not be accountable for it. Yep.
What, in your opinion, is the best Bible today in English printing?
The one you find in the book stands of the Society of St. Pius X. They checked it all.
Father, that's just a quite concentration. You consider that in systematic.
The church did, and I do, because there was no necessity to do so. But that's a long story. That's a long story. I put it in a nutshell, but we can't go into this too much. Archbishop Tuck, when in 1949 he consecrated bishops was against the will of the Pope, he did not have the absolute need to do so. In my first tape, which is available from Maida Publishers, I explained why Archbishop Lefebvre had to consecrate bishops. If he had not done so, there would be not a single seminary left in this world which allows a young man who rejects Vatican II like I do, and who rejects the new rite like I do, to become a Catholic priest. So this was an act of self-defense and defense of the Church. It was an act of extreme necessity.
In 1949, though, he had tough mandate to Vietnam.
Excuse me?
In 1949?
Yeah?
1969. You said 1949.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. There was no need.
Well, obviously he felt there was a need because...
He felt there was a need, so the excommunication in the new Code of Canon Law does not apply. But no, the general... See, that's why I told you this is another conference. Generally speaking, that was not the situation which Archbishop Lefebvre found himself in, and I don't think that the justification of self-defense can be applied.
So then you consider him to be systematic?
No, absolutely not. Not for that. If I consider him schismatic, it might be for other reasons, but not for that. No illegal episcopal consecration makes you a schismatic. The Church has never said that. The Church has never believed that. And the present Pope, in his letter Ecclesia Dei, is lying about this and going against the tradition of moral theology. I've explained this in Philadelphia. Read the Catholic Family News. Next question.
What about the Peter Society founded by the Holy Father, who now exists in parishes throughout the United States?
The St. Peter's Society, I have to underline, because people have indeed walked out on me just because I said the St. Peter's Society is wrong. I do not talk about the members of the St. Peter's Society. I do not judge any one of them. But the St. Peter's Society officially, mind you, and this is the whole point, officially had to agree not to criticize and condemn Vatican II, and not to criticize and condemn the Novus Ordo. Do I have to say more? Next question. Yeah?
You believe in the testimony of the Holy Mass, of course. to what extent should Latin extend to the Catholic faith? For example, the confession, the they are probable more valid than the vernacular.
There's no such thing as more or less valid. It's valid or not valid. That is the question. The Latin has to be used as much as possible and sensible. Because Latin is a dead language, English is a decaying language. And a dead language does not change. As long as I speak Latin, I automatically, wanting to or not, I automatically say the same thing the Council of Trent said. This is why you will find Latin quotations in my talks, because I want to enable those who do not own the Denzinger Schönmetzer collection of papal pronouncements and consider pronouncements. I want them to be able to check the Latin and to check what the Church really said. Because what the Church says, look how language changed. We are in the 90s, aren't we? And they are gay 90s, believe me. Does that mean the same it meant 100 years ago? The gay 90s in San Francisco 100 years ago, were they the same gay 90s they are now? The language changes. I personally, Pius XII, in my judgment, this is the judgment of a theologian. It is not a papal judgment. A future pope will have to decide what I say. Pius XII, as far as I'm concerned, gave in too much into the vernacular. I think that the vernacular, that's always dangerous. The vernacular is dangerous, first of all, as far as the content of theology is concerned. Second, as far as mistakes are concerned. You heard what I said about the papal mass in Vienna. Third, it confuses people. First of all, it confuses people by making them believe now they understand everything. They do not. Less even once they get the idea that now they understand something. I don't think that anybody should go to confession at all if he does not know what the priest means by his saying ego te absolva peccatis tuis in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. I mean, he didn't have the proper catechesis then. A child, I do not admit a child into confession that says, I want you to say this in the vernacular because I don't understand what you say. I explain to the child what it means before I admit him to first confession. I explain to him what the Latin means. I explain to him the significance of confession. The only exceptions are the matrimonial consent has to be in the vernacular. Because in Latin it is vis, so-and-so, so-and-so, and then the answer is volo. I will. I want to. Do you want this here? Will. I want to. Do you want this here present, so-and-so, as your legitimate wife, according to the right of the Holy Roman Church? And the answer is, in English, yes. Nobody can say afterwards, I meant something else. If you use the Latin word volo, volo does not only mean I want, I will, it also means I fly. Also, I don't want anybody to say afterwards, Father, but I didn't know what you were asking us, so I said anyway, yes. Renders marriage invalid. At baptism, sometimes a baptism of the adult, I have to ask an adult, what do you want? So I instruct them before, just to repeat what I say, and I explain to them what it will be. Like I have to ask him, what do you want? Baptism. What will baptism give you? The faith. And then before I baptize him, I say again, Visne baptizari, do you want to be baptized? And he says, yes, sir. So I explained to him before, when I look at you and say, you say yes, then you say yes to this and this and this and this. Why do I need the vernacular? Next question. Yeah.
To the initiation of Vatican II being accountable to Pius XII.
A what?
His idea, he kicked off Vatican II, and it was been held on by John 23rd and Pope following.
I've never heard that before. No. Okay. I'm tired. Let's conclude this with a short prayer. Agimus tibi gratias omnipotens Deus, pro universis